Rimuru's Rage by Rimu-chi. Walpagus and the Slave. The Walpurgis meeting room was a grand and ominous chamber, a testament to the power and status of the demon lords. The room was circular, with a massive obsidian table at its center. The table itself was etched with intricate runes that glowed faintly, emanating a mysterious aura. Around the table were 12 seats, each uniquely designed to reflect the personality and dominance of its occupant. The walls of the chamber were adorned with dark, glowing crystals, illuminating the room with a faint and eerie light. A dome-like ceiling stretched above, shimmering with a starry expanse that seemed to twist and turn as if alive. In this place of power sat some of the most formidable beings in existence. Demons, dragonoids, demonoids, giants, vampires, fallen angels, fairies, harpies, beastmen, and even a dead man all present and accounted for. At the center of it all was Rimuru Tempest, the once kind-hearted slime who had become a cold and ruthless protector. Despite his demeanor, Rimuru's actions were rooted in an unwavering desire to shield his friends, allies, subordinates, and loved ones, even if they rejected him or harbored resentment. This was the Demon Lord's Banquete Walpurgis, a gathering where only the strongest had a place. Yet, unbeknownst to all, three mysterious figures observed the proceedings from the shadows, their identities hidden. Let the readers speculate who they might be. Third person Pav. As everyone took their seats, the silence was broken by the voice of Clayman, who stood and addressed the gathering. Thank you all for coming. On this short notice, I would like to announce that the Walpurgis shall now begin. His voice carried an air of arrogance, oblivious to the glares and disdain that others directed toward him. Guy Crimson, the host of the event, turned to his maid. Misery, begin the introductions. Misery gave a respectful bow and stepped forward, her tone calm and authoritative as she began. I shall now introduce the esteemed individuals gathered here for this Walpurgis. First, Guy Crimson, the Lord of Darkness, representing the demons. Second, Milam Nava, the Destroyer, representing the Dragonoids. Third, Ramirez, the Pixie of the Labyrinth, representing the fairies. Fourth, Dino, the Sleeping Ruler, representing the fallen angels. Fifth, Luminous Valentine, the Queen of Nightmares, representing the vampires. Sixth, Dagrul, the Earthquake, representing the giants. Seventh, Leon Cromwell, the Platinum Saber, representing the demonoid humans. Eighth, Carrion, representing the beastmen. Absent. Ninth, Frey, the Harpy Queen, representing the harpies. 10th, Clayman, the Marionette Master, representing the dead men. And finally, our guest, Misery said, her voice dropping slightly as she gestured toward Rimuru. Rimuru Tempest, the monster ruler and king of the Tempest Federation, the slime. With that, Misery bowed once more and returned to her place behind Guy. The introductions were complete, and the room grew silent again. All eyes turned to Clayman, awaiting the official start of the meeting. But some couldn't help glancing at Rimuru, their curiosity piqued by the presence of a ruler so enigmatic, so unreadable. The banquet had begun, and the tension in the room was palpable. Clayman stood and began his speech, his voice laced with feigned authority and arrogance. Once again, I thank you all for coming here on such short notice. You must be wondering why I've gathered everyone here today. The answer is simple. Our title as the 10 Great Demon Lords is in grave danger. Clayman's gaze swept across the room, landing briefly on Rimuru before continuing. There is one individual among us who is a disgrace to the title of Demon Lord. A weak, insignificant being who has no right to stand among us. That person is none other than Rimuru Tempestamere Slime. A creature like that claiming the title of Demon Lord is beyond disrespectful to our esteemed ranks. What is he talking about? If anything is disrespectful to the title of Demon Lord, it's Clayman himself. When did this idiot decide he wanted to die? Guy thought. This idiot is really talking nonsense. Maybe I'll kill him later. No, first, I'll have to survive the headache his speech is giving me, Bino thought. Clayman continued his speech. Furthermore, I bring to your attention that Rimuru and Carrion have been plotting to awaken themselves as true demon lords. Their plan, to manipulate an innocent kingdom, Falmouth, into declaring war on Rimuru. And what does Rimuru do in response? He mercilessly slaughters those innocent soldiers and uses their deaths to awaken himself. To make matters worse, he even drags the name of the storm dragon Beldora into this despicable scheme. Clayman pointed an accusatory finger at Rimuru, who remained silent and unfazed in his seat. Dagrul, who had been silently observing, raised a hand and asked in his deep, commanding voice, one question. If this is true, why did I sense Veldora's aura not long ago? It was strong, and though it vanished, it was unmistakable. By all accounts, Veldora is free. Clayman's confident facade faltered. To have an answer for that. It's simple. Carrion and that slime must have killed Veldora together while he was in a weakened state. Dagrul narrowed his eyes, his tone sharp. I fought Veldora long ago. Even in a weakened state, no one could injure him. After all, he is a true dragon. Clayman stammered, left momentarily speechless. Then he quickly changed his approach. Well, I don't know much about Veldora or his current state, he said defensively. But I plead with you Aldo not punish Milam for killing Carrion. Milam, after learning of Rimuru and Carrion's plan, acted swiftly to eliminate Carrion. She did it for my sake, as a true friend. Why does Bestie's hair look different? It suits him, but something feels strange. It's almost like the time when I went berserk long ago. No, calm down, Milam. Bestino, Rimuru isn't someone like that. I'll continue my act, pretending to be under Clayman's control, Milam thought. Meanwhile, Rimuru sat comfortably in his chair, completely relaxed. His golden eyes gleamed with cold indifference as he observed the farce Clayman was orchestrating. As Clayman continued his tirade, his voice growing louder and more obnoxious with every word, a calm yet dangerous conversation took place in Rimuru's mind. Ciel's soothing voice echoed in Rimuru's thoughts. Less than master, Clayman is talking nonsense. Greater than. Yeah, he is, Rimuru responded, his tone laced with irritation. Less than so, what's your move, master? Greater than. First of all, I'll free Milam from Clayman's control. Then we can decide what to do. Honestly, he's giving me a headache. Ciel interjected smoothly. Less than master, individual Milam Nava is not under anyone's control. She's merely pretending to be. Greater than. What? Milam is just acting. Why would she do that? Less than reason unknown, but I can assure you she has no ill intentions. Judging by her actions, she's just playing along for some reason. Greater than. So, all this is just Milam having fun or pulling a prank on someone. Less than yes, and if it's a prank, it must be directed at you, master. After all, you're her best friend. Greater than. Rimuru sighed mentally. I see. So, I don't have to worry about her. Less than correct, master. Milam is in no danger. Greater than. Good. Then I can focus on shutting up this loudmouth. Less than absolutely, master. Whatever you feel like doing it. Greater than. Clayman was still speaking, his voice filled with condescension and self-importance. Someone like him a mere slime has no right to call himself a demon lord. It's disgraceful. Such a weak, insignificant creature cannot possibly. Bang! The sharp, thunderous sound of Rimuru's fist slamming against the table reverberated through the room, instantly silencing Clayman mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward Rimuru. His expression was icy, his golden eyes glowing with a dangerous light. The room was heavy with the sudden, oppressive aura he exuded. Are you done yet, Clayman? Rimuru's voice was calm, but it carried a chilling weight that sent shivers through everyone present. Or do you intend to keep spewing your delusions? Clayman, startled by the sudden interruption, stumbled over his words. What? How dare you? Rimuru's glare intensified, silencing him once more. Let me make one thing clear. You're not qualified to speak about strength or dignity when you're nothing more than a puppet trying to act important. So, unless you want this, mere slime, to remind you of your place, I suggest you sit down and shut up. The room was silent, the tension palpable. Even Guy smirked slightly, impressed by Rimuru's dominance. Milam, still pretending to be under Clayman's control, struggled to suppress her grin. The tension in the room was suffocating, yet Rimuru sat calm and composed, exuding authority as his golden eyes glared directly at Clayman. The air crackled with his latent energy, making even the seasoned demon lords uneasy. Clayman, trying to salvage his crumbling facade, raised his voice. See. Everyone, witness how disrespectful this slime is. How can such a creature attend this meeting, let alone insult a noble demon lord like myself? Rimuru's smile was cold, almost predatory. Noble. You. Please. You're not even worthy of the title, demon lord. Let's be real, Clayman. You're the weakest one in this entire room. Hell, Even Nox, one of my subordinates, could crush you without breaking a sweat. Clayman's face twisted in rage. How dare you compare me to a mere servant? I am a demon lord. You arrogant piece of. Rimuru interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. Angry already. That just proves how pathetic you are. Weaklings like you cling to titles because you've got nothing else to show for it. Clayman's face turned red as he pointed at Rimuru. See how this slime disrespects us all. Is this the kind of creature you'd allow to sit among us? Rimuru leaned back, smirking coldly. Slime or not, I'm just stating facts. You're nothing but a loudmouth, Clayman. No real power, no respect. Honestly, I don't know whether to laugh or pity you. Clayman slammed the table, veins bulging in his forehead. You insolent worm. How dare you talk to me like that? I am a respected demon lord. Rimuru's eyes narrowed, his smile turning wicked. Respected? By who? The flies buzzing around your rotting carcass. Everyone here knows what you area spineless puppet. Stop embarrassing yourself. Clayman pointed a trembling finger at Rimuru. You killed innocent soldiers, didn't you? Slaughtered them, and now you claim to be a demon lord so you can force others to kneel before you. Rimuru's gaze darkened, his voice dropping into a low, dangerous tone. Let me set the record straight, you sack of shit. Yes, I killed those soldiers. They invaded my land, killed my people, and declared war on Tempest. So, I wiped them out, collected their souls, and resurrected the citizens of Tempest who were slaughtered. Unlike you, I protect what's mine. Clayman stammered, trying to retort. That doesn't justify. Justify. Rimuru interrupted, his tone sharp enough to cut. I don't need to justify shit to a worm like you. You're so weak and irrelevant that the only thing keeping you alive is your own delusions. Guy smirked, watching the exchange with interest. Damn, he's not holding back at all. I might actually start liking this slime. Leon didn't even hide his glare, his mind still replaying Rimuru's earlier antics. Dino, oblivious to the tension, leaned back and dozed off. Ramirez, perched on her seat, chuckled to herself. Yup, Clayman's toast. There's no way out of this for him. Dagrul simply watched silently, his expression unreadable. Luminous, however, looked visibly upset. Her heterochromia eyes glared at Rimuru as she thought, this behavior is disgraceful. This slime is nothing like what Chronoa described. How could someone so cruel and arrogant even consider themselves a protector? Meanwhile, Milam's mind was racing. What's wrong with Bestie? He's furious, but wait. Did he say he resurrected his fallen citizens? That means people in Tempest died. Milam's heart sank. Bestie. I need to talk to him. Clayman, desperate and enraged, screamed, Don't you dare speak to me like that, you slime. Do you think you're above us? Don't act so high and mighty. Rimuru laughed coldly. Above you. Absolutely. High and mighty. Hell yeah. And what are you gonna do about it? Keep whining like the bitch you are. Clayman's face twisted in rage. That's enough. I'll kill you if you say another word. Rimuru leaned forward, his golden eyes glowing with terrifying intensity. His voice dripped with malice. Try it. Let's see how long you last before you're begging me to end your miserable existence. Rimuru repeated, his tone more taunting now, a sinister smirk curling his lips. Come on. Show me what you're made of. Unless, of course, you're all bark and no bite. Oh wait, we already know the answer to that. Clayman slammed the table again, his face flushed with fury. How dare you, you disgusting slime. If I wanted to, I could end you right here and now. Rimuru leaned back casually, as if bored by the whole charade. You. End me. Oh, please. I'd love to see you try. His smirk widened into something more menacing. But do be careful, Clayman. Who knows? This, disgusting slime, you're so eager to kill might just drag you into a living hell. I've been itching to see how much a coward like you can scream. Clayman sneered, though the fear in his eyes betrayed him. You've got a big mouth for a slime. Keep talking, and it'll be the death of you. Big mouth. Rimuru stood up, his presence dominating the room. You're one to talk, Clayman. You yap like an injured dog because that's all you are, weak, pathetic, and desperate. Come on, big shot. Prove to me you're worthy of being called a demon lord by doing what you claim you can, kill me. Or is that too hard for the almighty Clayman? The room fell silent as Clayman's face twisted in rage, his body trembling. You insolent piece of slime. How disrespectful can you get? Rimuru chuckled darkly. Disrespectful. No, Clayman. Disrespectful is pretending you're even in the same league as the rest of the demon lords. Disrespectful is wasting everyone's time with your delusions. You're not a demon lord, you're a joke wearing a crown that doesn't fit. Before Clayman could retort, Guy Crimson interjected, a smirk playing on his lips. Alright, enough talk. Let's settle this properly. His crimson eyes gleamed with amusement as he addressed Rimuru. Tell me, Rimuru, do you want to formally claim the Demon Lord title? No pretenses, no games. Rimuru sighed, his cold demeanor unwavering. Honestly, I couldn't care less about the title. But let's be real, Guy. To the world, I'm already a Demon Lord. Titles don't matter to me. Power does. Guy grinned, his sharp teeth glinting. Good answer. He turned to Clayman, his tone now sharp and commanding. So, Clayman, what's it gonna be? Prove your worth by defeating Rimuru. Or admit you're unfit to sit at this table and step down as a demon lord. Clayman slammed his hands on the table, trying to mask his trembling with bravado. Hey, this slime has some nerve to challenge me. Fine. I'll show him what I'm capable of. Rimuru's laugh was chilling, devoid of any warmth. Your capabilities. You mean like getting your ass handed to you by someone you keep calling a slime. Suddenly, Luminous Valentine stood up, her presence commanding attention. Her crimson eyes flashed with anger as she declared, that's enough. Luminous Valentine's declaration echoed through the room, piercing the tension like a sharp blade. I hate to say it, she began, her voice firm and filled with disdain, but I agree with Clayman this time. Ramirez blinked in confusion and leaned forward. What do you mean, Luminous? Luminous turned her sharp gaze to Rimuru. Your arrogance and disrespect are an insult to this demon lord's banquet. Speaking the way you do, dismissing our traditions, and calling. Before she could finish, Rimuru raised a hand and cut her off, his voice as cold as ice. Shish. Adults talking here, Demon Lord Luminous. Be a good girl and stay out of this. This doesn't include you. Before he could finish his sentence, Ciel's calm voice echoed in Rimuru's mind. Less than master, I have something to inform you about Luminous Valentine. Greater than. Rimuru's golden eyes flickered. What is it, Ciel? Less than Luminous Valentine is the master of Hinata Sakaguchi and the leader of the Western Holy Church. Greater than. Rimuru's expression darkened. What? Is that true, Ciel? Less than absolutely, master. I am 1000% certain. Greater than. A cruel smile spread across Rimuru's face. Another one for my list, huh? Hinata, Falmouth, Clayman, Leon, and now. Luminous Valentine. Less than what's your move, master? Greater than. Rimuru's voice in his mind was filled with malicious glee. You'll see. Rimuru turned his attention back to Luminous, his gaze piercing. No, wait. This does include you, Luminous Valentine. Luminous frowned, confusion evident. And how, exactly, does this concern me? Rimuru leaned forward, his voice laced with venom. If I'm not mistaken, your precious pet, Hinata Sakaguchi, is quite involved in this mess. The moment Rimuru mentioned Hinata, Luminous's eyes widened in shock, betraying her composure. Rimuru's cruel smile widened. She's the one who aided Falmouth's army in invading Tempest. Not only that, but she also had the audacity to try and kill me. He let out a dark, mocking laugh. It's funny, really. Someone working under a monster dares to preach about monsters being unworthy of life. Luminous's voice was sharp, but there was a slight tremble in her tone. What is that supposed to mean? Rimuru shrugged casually, his tone nonchalant but filled with menace. Oh, nothing much. Just that you're as much a hypocrite as she is. But let's skip the pleasantries, shall we? I have a proposal for you. Luminous's eyes narrowed. And what might that be? Rimuru's golden eyes gleamed with malevolence as he stood and began to enumerate. First, hand over Hinata and the 10 great saints. I'll deal with her myself and make sure she pays for every single life she's taken. He raised a second finger. Second, kill Hinata yourself. Prove that you have what it takes to stand among as a demon lord. Do that, and I might consider sparing your precious Ruberios. A third finger rose, his smirk turning wicked. Third, become my slave. Body and soul. Swear absolute loyalty to me, and I might spare you and your little nation. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper filled with malice. So, what's it going to be, Demon Lord Luminous Valentine? Choose wisely, because if you refuse, I'll personally ensure that Ruburios is reduced to ashes, with you buried beneath the ruins. The room was dead silent, the tension suffocating. Luminous's fists trembled as fury and indignation burned within her, but there was a flicker of fear in her crimson eyes. You dare to threaten me? Rimuru chuckled darkly, his aura flaring. Oh, Luminous. This isn't a threat. It's a promise. The room was thick with tension as Clayman's frustrated voice cut through the silence. How can someone be this arrogant? You're pushing our limits, Rimuru. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, his golden eyes glowing with a chilling light, his smirk a blend of mockery and disdain. Good. Then it's about time I pushed harder. I'll kill you, take Hinata's so-called master, and turn her into my slave. And after that, I'll kill Hinata. That's what I want. The calm yet icy tone in Rimuru's voice made the room shiver. Luminous Valentine rose to her feet, her crimson eyes narrowing in defiance. Whatever Hinata has done, it doesn't concern me. Before she could continue, Rimuru raised a hand, cutting her off coldly. Stop. Are you saying you'd hand over Hinata and the 10 great saints to me? Luminous snarled, interrupting him. I would never hand over anyone. And I'd rather die than become your slave. I'll fight you myself and show you your place, Rimuru Tempest. Rimuru's smirk grew colder as he leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. A master so willing to humiliate herself for her subordinates. Admirable, in a way, but also pathetic. I almost respect it. Before the situation could escalate further, a commanding voice shattered the moment. Bestie. Stop this. Everyone turned to Milam Nava, shock etched on their faces. Clayman's jaw dropped, and others, including Luminous, Ramirez, and a disguised Carrion, stared at her in disbelief. Most of all, Clayman, who had believed Milam was firmly under his control. Rimuru, however, remained unfazed, his gaze fixed on Milam. His voice was sharp, but there was an undercurrent of warmth only she could sense. What is it, Milam? Done with your little act. Milam smirked, placing her hands on her hips. So, you knew I was acting, huh? Clayman's voice trembled as he pointed at her. How can you speak without my permission? You're supposed to be under my control. Milam turned to him with a glare that could shatter mountains, her voice dripping with contempt. As if I'd ever fall for something so cheap. With a quick motion, she tore the necklace Clayman had given her from her neck and flung it across the room. Frey, who had been watching quietly, spoke up, her tone laced with irritation. You had to do this now, Milam. You and I had a plan this for long. Milam shrugged, unconcerned. It doesn't matter. I'll handle it. She walked over to Rimuru, her demeanor softening as she gazed at him with concern. Rimuru, tell me what happened. Rimuru reached out and patted her head gently, his cold exterior melting for just a moment. His tone, however, was firm. You're not part of this, Milam. Stay out of it. I need to make them pay for what they've done to my people, to Tempest. Milam frowned, her voice trembling. No, Rimuru, this isn't right. Believe me, I made the same mistake a long time ago. Rimuru opened his mouth to respond, but Milam continued, her voice filled with sorrow. A long time ago, I lost my parents. I don't even remember how it happened. The only thing left to remind me of them was the baby dragon who stayed by my side. Then elves and humans attacked us. That baby dragon, he tried to protect me, but he was killed. Her fists clenched as her voice wavered. In my rage, I lost control. I killed hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe even 1,000,000 people. But even after I became a demon lord, it didn't fix anything. The baby dragon came back, but not as my first friend. He was a monster, and I had to seal him away. I was alone, afraid of myself, until you became my friend. Her voice broke as tears streamed down her face. I'm not saying you're wrong, but. Rimuru gently placed a finger on her lips, silencing her. His tone softened, but his resolve remained firm. That's enough, Milam. You did what you could, and I'll do what I must. Because of you, I succeeded. Your story gave me the strength to bring my people back. Milam's eyes widened, her tears now mixed with a glimmer of hope. Really? Rimuru nodded, a small smile breaking through his cold demeanor. That's why I became a demon lord. But as a king, I have to ensure justice. They deserve what's coming to them. So please, Milam, stay out of this. Milam hesitated, then stepped back with a resigned sigh. If that's what you want, fine. Ciel's voice echoed in Rimuru's mind, calm and analytical. Less than master, she's genuinely worried about you. Greater than. Rimuru's mental response was steady. I know, seal. Turning back to the table, Rimuru addressed Guy Crimson with a chilling edge in his voice. That's settled. I'll fight both Luminous and Clayman at the same time. If I win, Clayman dies, and Luminous becomes my slave. Guy tilted his head, intrigued. And her title is a demon lord. Rimuru shrugged, his expression indifferent. She can keep it. Titles mean nothing to me. Guy nodded, a smirk tugging at his lips. Very well. That settles it on your end. Now, what about you two? Luminous. Clayman. Clayman, still shaken by Milam's betrayal, gritted his teeth and forced a sneer. I'll fight him and put this arrogant slime in his place. Guy turned to Luminous, who sighed, her eyes filled with resolve. I agree to fight. But if I win, I want something in return. Guy turned back to Rimuru, curious. And what would you offer? Rimuru's smirk returned, colder than ever. If she wins, she can do whatever she wants with me and Tempest. I won't resist. Luminous crossed her arms, nodding in satisfaction. Good enough for me. The round table vanished as the room transformed into a massive arena, its walls expanding to accommodate the impending battle. Rimuru stood in the center with his loyal subordinate Nox, while Luminous and Clayman prepared themselves across the room. The arena crackled with tension as Clayman let out a deranged laugh. Behold my greatest creations. Two massive puppets appeared on either side of him, their soulless eyes glowing with dark energy. Beside him, his nine-tailed fox let out a deep growl, its fur bristling as it began to grow, its form towering over the battlefield. Clayman sneered, looking at Rimuru with a twisted smile. Do you see this, Rimuru? My puppets and this magnificent beast will crush you. Luminous sighed audibly, her expression a mix of disdain and disappointment as she muttered under her breath. Clayman, you're pathetic. Truly, I expected better. Inside Rimuru's mind, Ciel's calm voice echoed. Less than master, the nine-tailed fox is under Clayman's control. Greater than. Rimuru's golden eye twitched slightly, his tone cold as he responded. So, he's forcing that fox to fight for him. Less than correct. Greater than. Rimuru's gaze flicked to Nox, who was waiting patiently behind him. Without looking back, Rimuru gave his command. Nox, handle the puppets and that fox. But don't harm the fox, break Clayman's control spell instead. Nox bowed deeply, his voice resolute. As you command, Rimuru-sama. Rimuru nodded and turned his full attention to Luminous and Clayman. His voice was eerily calm, but the menace in it was unmistakable. Now then, let's play for a while. Less than as you wish, master. Greater than Ciel affirmed. Meanwhile Clayman decided to fight directly, his expression twisted with frustration and desperation. He unleashed a dark flame attack, a roaring torrent of black and crimson fire aimed straight at Rimuru. The flames rushed forward, but Rimuru didn't move an inch. The inferno stopped just before reaching him, fizzling out as if devoured by an unseen force. That's it. Rimuru's voice was cold, his crimson and golden eyes narrowing. Pathetic. Clayman's teeth clenched, his voice a snarl. You'll regret underestimating me, Rimuru Tempest. With a roar, he charged at Rimuru, summoning his cursed scythe. The weapon exuded malice, its blade gleaming with dark energy. Clayman swung with all his might, aiming for Rimuru's neck. Rimuru stepped aside casually, his movements fluid and unbothered. With a quick motion, he caught the scythe midswing, gripping it tightly before yanking it free from Clayman's hands. This is what you call a weapon. Rimuru's voice was filled with disdain. He tossed the scythe aside, the weapon embedding itself uselessly into the ground. Clayman's face twisted with anger, and he barked, Luminous, attack him now. Luminous hesitated for a brief moment, her crimson eyes flickering with doubt. But she obeyed, summoning her Crimson Moon attack, a swirling mass of blood and demonic energy that hurtled toward Rimuru. Rimuru didn't flinch. He let the attack come, watching it with cold indifference. The destructive energy disintegrated mere inches from his body, scattering into harmless sparks. Is this your idea of a threat? Rimuru turned his gaze to Luminous, his voice laced with mockery. You disappoint me, Valentine. I expected more from a so-called Queen of Nightmare. Luminous's expression darkened, her pride wounded. I don't need your approval, she snapped. No, Rimuru said coldly, stepping closer. But you'll give me what I want. Hand over Hinata. Luminous froze, her crimson eyes narrowing dangerously. I'll never hand her over to you, she said defiantly. Rimuru's smirk turned sharp, almost predatory. You're refusing me. Poor choice, Luminous. In a blur of movement, Rimuru caught her next strike midair, his hand clamping down on her wrist with crushing force. His heterochromatic eyes bore into hers, cold and unyielding. You're wasting your time, he whispered, his tone venomous. You'd be better off as my slave. Use your unique skill, lust, to satisfy me. Maybe then I'll spare you. Luminous's eyes flared with rage, her pride refusing to yield. She yanked her arm free with a burst of strength. Never, she spat, her voice trembling with fury. Suit yourself. Rimuru's voice was devoid of care, his gaze already turning back to Clayman. Unbeknownst to Luminous, Clayman had been using her as bait all along. As she engaged Rimuru, Clayman chanted under his breath, shadows coiling around him like living tendrils. Now you'll see the power of a true demon lord. Clayman roared, his voice echoing across the battlefield as his transformation began. The ground trembled violently as a dark aura engulfed him. His body contorted grotesquely, growing larger and more monstrous. His limbs elongated unnaturally, and multiple arms sprouted from his torso, each one gripping a wicked weapon: swords, spears, axes, and more. A jagged black mask formed over his face, his expression hidden beneath the twisted design. The air grew oppressive, thick with malice as an army of shadowy figures materialized behind him, each one a manifestation of his dark energy. You've forced my hand, Rimuru Tempest. Clayman's voice was distorted, filled with madness. Behold my true form and despair. Luminous stepped back instinctively, her eyes widening as she realized what Clayman had done. You were planning this all along, she muttered, her voice low with realization. Rimuru glanced at her, his expression cold and unsympathetic. Maybe if you weren't so blind, you would have noticed, he said, his tone cutting. Clayman's monstrous form roared, his army surging forward to join the fray. Luminous hesitated, her conflicted gaze flickering between Clayman and Rimuru. Rimuru, still untouched and unbothered, stood firm, his gaze locked on the transformed Clayman. Is this supposed to impress me? He asked, his tone dripping with contempt. The battlefield erupted into chaos as Clayman's shadow army surged forward, their weapons gleaming with cursed energy and their movements unnaturally precise. Each figure was a manifestation of malice, a direct extension of Clayman's overwhelming hatred. Rimuru stood in the center, unfazed. His eyes glowed with an icy brilliance, his presence alone a stark contrast to the madness around him. A cheap trick, he muttered, his voice calm yet cutting. With a flick of his wrist, Rimuru unleashed a wave of energy so potent it split the ground beneath him. The shockwave tore through the shadow army like paper, disintegrating the cursed soldiers into black mist. Their weapons shattered midswing, and their forms dissolved into nothingness. Done already? Rimuru asked, dusting off his sleeve. His voice was laced with mockery, his gaze piercing through the dissipating mist to meet Clayman's monstrous form. Clayman growled, his mask cracking slightly under the pressure of his rage. Don't think you've won, Rimuru Tempest. I've only begun to fight. With a roar, Clayman charged forward, his monstrous limbs wielding an array of cursed weapons. Each weapon radiated malice, their edges dripping with energy that could corrode even the strongest defenses. Rimuru stood firm, his eyes narrowing. As Clayman swung down a massive, jagged axe, Rimuru caught it effortlessly with one hand. The cursed energy fizzled out against his palm as if rejected by his overwhelming aura. You put too much faith in these toys, Rimuru said coldly, his grip tightening. With a crushing motion, the axe shattered into pieces, the fragments scattering across the battlefield. Clayman roared in frustration, swinging a spiked flail with all his might. Rimuru sidestepped the attack with fluid grace, catching the chain midswing. He pulled hard, yanking Clayman off balance before snapping the flail's chain like it was a thread. One by one, I'll break them all, Rimuru said, his tone devoid of emotion. Clayman swung a cursed blade, its edge crackling with dark lightning. Rimuru ducked beneath the strike, grabbing the blade with his bare hand. The dark lightning danced harmlessly around his fingers as he crushed the blade in his grasp. You're running out of options, Clayman, Rimuru said, his tone calm but edged with menace. Clayman howled, his multiple arms lashing out with spears, hammers, and daggers in a frenzy of attacks. Rimuru moved like a shadow, dodging and deflecting each strike effortlessly. With every counter, he destroyed another weapon, reducing Clayman's arsenal to nothing. You were never worthy of being called a demon lord, Rimuru said, his voice dripping with disdain. As Clayman staggered back, his monstrous form visibly shaking, Luminous seized the opportunity. From behind Rimuru, she launched a barrage of crimson energy spears, each one infused with her holy demonic fusion. This ends here, she shouted, her voice filled with determination. Rimuru didn't even turn to face her. With a flick of his hand, a barrier of shimmering energy materialized behind him. The crimson spears collided with the barrier, exploding harmlessly in bursts of light. Luminous, Rimuru said, his voice cold and sharp, you're testing my patience. He turned his head slightly, his gaze locking onto her. The sheer intensity of his eyes made her freeze in place. Do you not see the situation you're in? Rimuru continued, his tone like ice. Give up. Submit to me, I'll treat you well as a slave of cause. Luminous gritted her teeth, her pride battling against the realization sinking in. I'll never submit to you, Rimuru. She shouted, launching herself at him with incredible speed. Her attack was swift, a strike aimed directly at Rimuru's heart. But Rimuru caught her hand mid-strike, his grip unyielding. You're a fool, he said, his voice low and venomous. And I don't have time for fools. Without releasing her hand, Rimuru twisted his wrist, sending Luminous flying backward. She landed hard, skidding across the ground before coming to a stop. Stay down, or I'll treat you no differently than Clayman, Rimuru warned, his gaze returning to the monstrous figure before him. Clayman, now weaponless and desperate, roared in fury. His monstrous form surged with unstable energy as he prepared to unleash one final attack. This ends now, Rimuru Tempest. Clayman screamed, his voice echoing with madness. Rimuru stepped forward, his expression calm and unbothered. You're right about one thing, Clayman, he said. This does end now. Clayman, in his monstrous form, lunged at Rimuru with a frenzied roar. His remaining cursed energy surged around him, creating devastating shockwaves as his massive fists came crashing down. Rimuru didn't flinch. His movements were swift and precise, weaving through Clayman's wild attacks with unnerving ease. A simple flick of Rimuru's finger deflected a powerful strike, the force of his counter sending Clayman stumbling backward. You're slower than I expected, Rimuru said coldly, his crimson and golden eyes glowing ominously. Clayman roared in frustration, summoning all his strength for a brutal downward punch with all 6 of his arms. The ground cracked under the weight of his attack, but Rimuru had already vanished. In an instant, Rimuru appeared behind him, delivering a devastating kick to Clayman's back. The impact sent Clayman crashing into the ground, creating a massive crater. The monstrous figure struggled to rise, his mask cracked and his breathing ragged. You're no match for me, Rimuru said flatly, walking toward him with a calm yet terrifying demeanor. Clayman refused to give up, launching a desperate barrage of dark energy blasts from his remaining strength. Rimuru raised a hand, and a translucent barrier appeared around him. The attacks fizzled out harmlessly on impact. You've wasted enough of my time, Rimuru said, his voice devoid of emotion. In a blur of motion, Rimuru closed the distance, his aura flaring like a storm. His hand struck Clayman's chest, sending a shockwave through his body. Clayman let out a guttural cry, his monstrous form shrinking slightly as his energy began to wane. Clayman fell to the ground, his body battered and broken. He tried to push himself up, but his strength failed him. He looked up at Rimuru, his eyes filled with fear and desperation. Rimuru stepped forward, placing a foot firmly on Clayman's chest. The weight of his presence alone made it impossible for Clayman to move. Pay for what you've done, Clayman, Rimuru said coldly, his voice echoing with finality. Ciel's voice rang in Rimuru's mind, calm and calculating. Less than, shall I activate thought acceleration, master? Let him feel what it's like to suffer for eternity in mere moments. Greater than. Rimuru smirked. Do it. To Clayman, the world slowed to a crawl. 1 second stretched into 100 years, the weight of his terror amplifying with each moment. His mind reeled as the overwhelming despair of eternity began to crush him. Rimuru crouched slightly, gripping one of Clayman's grotesque arms. With a sickening crack, he tore the limb clean off, tossing it aside like garbage. Clayman howled in agony, his distorted voice echoing across the battlefield. Does it hurt? Rimuru asked coldly, his tone devoid of sympathy. He grabbed another arm, ripping it off with the same brutal efficiency. One by one, Rimuru dismantled Clayman's monstrous form. Each arm was torn off with precision, leaving Clayman writhing in unbearable pain. This is for every life you manipulated, Rimuru said, tearing off another arm. For every person you tormented. Clayman's screams grew weaker, his body reduced to a trembling, pitiful mess. By the time Rimuru ripped off the final arm, Clayman was barely conscious, his monstrous form reduced to a grotesque shell. Rimuru stood over him, his aura calm yet terrifying. You'll never hurt anyone again, he said, his voice icy. Ciel's voice spoke again, a hint of satisfaction in her tone. Less than, well done, master. Shall I finish him off, or will you grant him one last moment of suffering? Greater than. Rimuru smirked, his eyes glinting with cruel satisfaction. I'll decide soon enough. As Clayman's almost unconscious broken body lay beneath Rimuru's gaze, the battlefield fell silent, the air thick with the weight of his defeat. Rimuru turned slowly toward Luminous, his cold gaze locking onto her trembling form. She was still on the ground, recovering from the earlier attack, her eyes filled with lingering defiance despite the pain. He walked up to her, his footsteps echoing in the silence, each one heavier than the last. Standing over her, he looked down with a disdainful expression. Do you still want to fight? He asked, his tone icy, or will you hand over Hinata to me? Luminous gritted her teeth, her voice shaky yet firm. I would never. Before she could finish, Rimuru delivered a sharp kick to her stomach. It wasn't enough to cause severe harm, but it was enough to send her reeling in pain, silencing her instantly. Luminous doubled over, clutching her stomach, her defiance faltering as she gasped for air. Slaves, Rimuru said coldly, his tone like a blade, never refuse orders from their master. Luminous looked up at him with fury in her eyes, her voice trembling but resolute. I am not your slave, and I will never be one. Rimuru sighed, shaking his head as if disappointed. You still don't understand your position. Ciel's voice rang in Rimuru's mind, calm and composed. Less than, master, what you gonna do greater than. Rimuru smirked. Ciel, create a slave collar. Make it so only you can remove it. And ensure that any disobedience triggers 10 seconds of unbearable pain. Less than, understood, master, greater than Ciel replied smoothly. In an instant, a collar materialized in Rimuru's hand, sleek and black, with faint magical runes glowing ominously. A long chain was attached to it, its weight heavy with symbolism. Rimuru held the collar up for Luminous to see. Like it or not, you're mine now, Luminous Valentine. Her eyes widened in horror as Rimuru grabbed her by the hair, yanking her up with a cruel tug. A single tear escaped her eye, trailing down her cheek from the sharp pain. Rimuru's expression remained cold as he leaned in, his voice chillingly soft. If you serve me well, I'll treat you well. Disobey me, and you'll regret it. He snapped the collar around her neck, its runes glowing briefly before settling into place. The chain dangled in his hand, a stark reminder of her new reality. Get up, Luminous, Rimuru commanded. Luminous glared at him, her pride refusing to let her comply. Why would I? Her words were cut off as the collar activated, sending waves of excruciating pain through her body. She screamed, clutching at the collar as the pain tore through her, her knees buckling. After 10 agonizing seconds, the torment ceased. Panting, she quickly stood up, trembling from the aftershock. Rimuru's gaze didn't soften. You're mine now, so behave, Luminous. Luminous looked at him with hatred burning in her eyes. I hate you, Rimu. The pain surged through her again, cutting off her words. Her body convulsed as the collar delivered another 10 seconds of unbearable agony. When the pain subsided, she bit her lip, tears of humiliation welling in her eyes. Rimuru smirked cruelly. Don't even think about saying my name without permission. Understand? Luminous nodded weakly, her pride in tatters. Turning away from her, Rimuru looked toward Guy, who stood outside the barrier watching the scene unfold. Mind removing the barrier? Rimuru said, his tone as commanding as ever. Guy snapped his fingers, the barrier dissolving instantly. Rimuru grabbed the chain attached to Luminous's collar and began to drag her toward her seat. She stumbled behind him, the pain and humiliation leaving her no choice but to follow. When they reached her chair, Rimuru released the chain and gestured for her to sit. Sit down and stay there until I say otherwise. Don't talk unless spoken to. Luminous hesitated, her face pale and full of pain. I don't want to feel that pain anymore, she whispered, her voice breaking. With great reluctance, she lowered herself into the seat. The room shifted as the magical barrier dissolved completely. The space expanded, returning to its original size. A grand table appeared in the center, re-establishing the setting for the meeting. Rimuru's cold gaze swept over the room. His dominance was absolute, and the tension in the air was suffocating. Luminous sat silently, her head lowered, the weight of the collar a constant reminder of her submission. Rimuru's cold, calculating voice filled the room as he addressed the gathered demon lords. I'm going to kill Clayman right now. What do you think? After all, he was a member of your demon lord council. Guy spoke with eager enthusiasm. Go ahead. I'm looking forward to seeing him die. Anyone who betrays us deserves it. Dagrul simply grunted in agreement. No complaints here. He's a fool. Leon remained indifferent, his voice neutral. I don't care either way. But in his mind, a seed of doubt was planted. What the hell is with this monster? He fights 2 demon lords and then makes one his slave. Dino, who had been watching Rimuru with growing fear, added in a shaky voice, yeah, you can kill that Clayman guy, sir, haha. His awkward laughter only served to highlight his discomfort, and the room fell silent, the weight of his words heavy in the air. Frey, as stoic as ever, nodded without a word. Carrion, removing his mask for the first time, spoke with a grin. Guess I don't need this anymore, he said, tossing it aside with a casual flourish. Rimuru gave a slight smirk as he acknowledged Carrion. Finally, you show yourself. Carrion chuckled, clearly amused. Yeah, and thanks for helping my people. Rimuru's response was brief but sincere. We're allies after all. Carrion smiled, nodding in agreement. Yeah, that's right. Ramirez, ever the cheerleader, clapped her hands together. Clayman is all yours, Rimuru. Kill him or not, it's up to you. She gave a thumbs up. Milam, who had been quiet up until now, spoke with a mischievous glint in her eyes. You can kill Clayman, but, would you mind releasing Luminous? Her tone was innocent, but Rimuru's eyes remained cold. Rimuru didn't hesitate in his response. I'll release her after I take what I want. He met Milam's eyes with a smirk, and she simply nodded with a smile. Inside his mind, Seal spoke with a hint of concern. Less than master, you're not going to release her, are you? Greater than. Rimuru's voice was calm, almost dismissive. Of course not. Why would I throw away a good slave? Seal sighed, her tone resigned. Less than whatever you wish, master. Greater than. Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Seal, why did you sigh? Less than I'm not. It's your imagination. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled to himself. If you say so, he said dismissively, before turning his attention back to the room. Suddenly, Nox come to Rimuru with the 9-tailed fox in her arms. Master, I've completed your task, Nox said with a bow, presenting the fox to Rimuru. Rimuru's gaze softened for a brief moment as he looked at the small creature. Good job, Nox, he said, his voice warm with approval. Nox nodded and asked, what should I do with her now? Rimuru glanced at the fox, his eyes kind, yet calculating. Take her to Tempest and let her rest. Nox nodded again and turned to leave, carrying the fox in her arms. Rimuru raised his hand, and a portal to his office opened in an instant. Nox stepped through with the fox, and the portal closed behind them. Guy, still baffled by Rimuru's display of power, raised an eyebrow. What the hell, Rimuru? Rimuru's expression remained unreadable. What? Guy, now genuinely confused, asked, how can you open a gate like that? It's my Walpurgis gate. Rimuru smirked. It's not Walpurgis's gate you use. It's mine. I created it after seeing yours. The room fell silent for a moment as everyone processed what Rimuru had said. Guy blinked, then sighed heavily. Did you mean, you copied my skill? Rimuru nodded nonchalantly. Kind of, yeah. Guy sighed again, shaking his head. That makes sense, I guess. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Rimuru and the others, 3 individuals were observing the unfolding events from the shadows, each with their own unique perspective and motivations. The first individual, whose identity remained a mystery, watched silently as Rimuru made his cold decisions. So, you've become a demon lord, the voice echoed in the unseen space, its tone dark and almost amused. Impressive, but I want him to be crueler, more bloodthirsty. The voice's words were laced with a sense of approval, but there was a sinister undertone. Either way, if he kills the individuals I want, I don't have any complaints. This figure had been the one who had whispered to Rimuru back when he first became a demon lord, subtly pushing him toward this dark path. Their plans were in motion, but they desired more suffering, more destruction. Rimuru's current path wasn't enough for them yet. On the opposite side, a different figure observed with a more somber and thoughtful expression. At $% N. Interesting, the figure muttered, watching Rimuru's actions from a distance. He was almost consumed by darkness, yet there's still a soft side to him. If he's consumed by it fully, everything will be destroyed. I can only pray and watch. This individual, far from wishing for Rimuru's corruption, feared the consequences of him falling deeper into darkness. They knew how dangerous Rimuru's power was when tempered by compassion, but if that compassion were to be lost, the consequences would be catastrophic. They could only watch in silence, hoping that Rimuru would find his way back before it was too late. The third figure, at $, who had been watching with deep concern, clenched their fists. You're not like this, Rimuru, they said, their voice full of emotion. I have to reach you no matter what happens. Just you wait, Rimuru. I'll bring you back. This individual was genuinely worried about Rimuru's well-being. She could see the subtle shifts in his personality, the growing coldness that might consume him if left unchecked. She knew that Rimuru was still the person they once cared about, but she feared for his soul, his future. This person was determined to save him, no matter the cost, no matter how far he fell. Meanwhile, Kleiman found himself drowning in regret and desperation. His mind was in chaos as he processed the situation unfolding around him. Why is this happening to me? Kleiman muttered to himself, his voice tinged with frustration and disbelief. Why am I in this situation? His thoughts turned inward, and he felt a deep pang of guilt. Kazalim-sama, I failed you. Terre, Footman, Laplace. I'm sorry. I failed you all. The tears welled up, his emotions spiraling out of control. No, no, no. He clenched his fists, trembling as his voice grew louder. I can't give up. Kazalim-sama, give me power. Give me power. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the darkness of his mind. Kleiman, this is the last time I am going to give you this power. Use it well. Kleiman's face twisted with desperation, and he screamed, I accept, Kazalim-sama. Give me your power. In that moment, the aura around Kleiman grew exponentially stronger, pushing out a chaotic energy that was more intense than ever before. Rimuru and the others could feel the weight of it, but it still wasn't on the level of someone like Frey or Carrion. It was powerful, but not enough to be a serious threat. Rimuru sighed, his expression filled with annoyance. What is this world coming to? He muttered, sensing the absurdity of the situation. Suddenly, Seal spoke within Rimuru's mind. Less than master, it looks like Kleiman has gained more power from someone, possibly an individual who has awakened him as a demon lord. Greater than. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And who might that be, Seal? Less than the individual is unknown, but if I analyze his soul, I might be able to find more information. Greater than. Rimuru nodded. Good, let's finish him. I'm not interested in playing with him anymore. He started walking toward Kleiman, his steps calm, as if this battle was nothing more than a simple inconvenience. Guy, watching from the side, spoke up. Are you going to kill him? Guy asked, his voice curious but calm. Rimuru nodded without hesitation. This will be quick. I don't want to waste any more time on him. Kleiman, now fully charged with power, stood tall. I accept that you're stronger than me before, he shouted, a manic grin spreading across his face. But now I am stronger. Now I'll show you what I'm really capable of. Rimuru sighed, his patience wearing thin. Kleiman, if you have something better, then use it. I might let you feel your awakened power for the last time. Kleiman laughed, a twisted, maniacal sound. Fine. Remember this, Rimuru Tempest. This is the last time you'll ever speak. Kleiman prepared to cast his ultimate attack, a spell born from his desperation. Meanwhile, Rimuru simply stood there, unbothered, as Kleiman began his incantation. Eat this, Rimuru Tempest. This is my ultimate attack, Drago Buster. Kleiman shouted, and a massive golden dragon-like energy shot toward Rimuru with tremendous force. Rimuru didn't flinch. He raised his hand, and in a calm, almost bored tone, he said, You said, eat it, well, I'll eat it. Beelzebub. The moment the energy reached Rimuru, it seemed to disappear into thin air. The attack didn't touch him. Instead, it was completely absorbed by the dark energy surrounding him. The golden dragon-like energy dissipated, absorbed by Beelzebub, a skill that allowed Rimuru to consume any attack that came his way. Kleiman's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? He could only stare in shock, his ultimate attack rendered completely ineffective. My ultimate attack didn't work. Rimuru's gaze was cold, almost apathetic. It's because that's the weakest magic spell I've ever seen. Kleiman's voice trembled with frustration. How is that possible? Rimuru sighed once more. Beelzebub, devour him. Beelzebub took over, and Kleiman's form was consumed by the dark energy. His body began to wither and break down, consumed in agonizing pain as his very essence was torn apart. He screamed in agony, his body contorting as the energy absorbed him, and his mind filled with regret. I'm sorry. Kazalim. Tyr. Footman. Laplace. Yuki. I failed you all. Kleiman's thoughts were filled with the faces of those he had betrayed, the ones he had sought power for. But now, as he was torn apart, he realized the ultimate cost of his actions. Rimuru looked down at the now empty space where Kleiman had been, his expression unchanged. Pathetic, he muttered. In Rimuru's mind, Seal spoke again. Less than soul analysis, complete. Master, it seems Kleiman was being controlled by someone else. There is another individual who ordered him to act this way, separate from the one controlling him. Greater than. Rimuru rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the new information. That's a mess. Do me a favor, Seal. Explain it to me later, alright. Less than as you wish, Master. Greater than. Rimuru turned, his cold gaze lingering over the room for a moment, before walking back to his seat. His steps were measured, deliberate, and he sat down with an air of absolute authority. He rested his chin on his hand and let out a sigh. That's over, Rimuru said nonchalantly. Then, his sharp eyes shifted toward Guy Crimson. Now, let's continue the meeting. Guy, his curiosity piqued, leaned back in his chair with a smirk. Is there anyone here who has anything to say about Rimuru becoming a demon lord? Milam was the first to speak, her cheerful demeanor cutting through the tension. Nope. I don't have any complaints. She said, grinning brightly. Ramirez quickly chimed in, her voice just as carefree. Me neither. I think it's great. Dino, who had been unusually quiet, raised a hand half-heartedly. Yeah, no complaints here. Just, yeah, he muttered, still visibly uneasy. Leon didn't utter a word, his expression unreadable. Meanwhile, Dagrul nodded solemnly. He has the power to back up his words. That's all that matters to me. Frey and Carrion exchanged a glance before nodding in agreement. Luminous, however, remained silent, her head bowed low. The fear etched onto her face was palpable, the slave collar on her neck a stark reminder of her new position. Rimuru turned his cold eyes toward her and spoke with an icy edge. You have permission to speak, Luminous. Luminous flinched slightly, her voice trembling as she stammered, I have no complaints. Guy observed her with a raised eyebrow but said nothing, letting it slide. He sighed and turned back to Rimuru. Very well then. Rimuru Tempest, from this day forward, you are officially one of USTHE Demon Lords. Before the room could settle, Ramirez raised her voice. Hey, wait. What about Rimuru's title? We all have titles, don't we? Guy paused, scratching his chin. Good point. Rimuru, what title do you think fits you? Milam jumped in, her enthusiasm cutting off any response. How about, Lord of Nightmare? It suits you. Rimuru sighed, his tone laced with indifference. Guy, can I have multiple titles? Guy shrugged. As long as they suit you, yes. A slight smile crept across Rimuru's face, cold yet mischievous. Then I'll take 2 titles, Chaos Creator, and Lord of Nightmare. Guy nodded, albeit with a sigh of resignation. Very well. From now on, Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest will be known as the Chaos Creator and Lord of Nightmare. The room erupted in congratulations, though the atmosphere was a strange mix of fear and admiration. Congratulations, bestie. Milam cheered, her energy infectious as always. Congrats, Rimuru, Ramirez added, throwing him a thumbs up. Carrion smirked. Congratulations, Rimuru. Looks like you've earned your spot. Guy smirked as well, his tone light but tinged with respect. Congrats, Rimuru Tempest. You're officially one of us now. In Rimuru's mind, Seal spoke with a tone that was both formal and fond. Less than Master, congratulations on officially becoming a member of the Demon Lord Council. Greater than. Rimuru's tone softened for the first time in the meeting. Thanks, Seal. I wouldn't be here without you. Less than incorrect. I merely support you as your manas. This success is your own. Greater than. Stop deflecting. It's because of you, Seal. So don't argue. Less than as you wish, master. Greater than. Rimuru's gaze turned back to Luminous, who was trembling in her seat. His voice was cold, cutting through the room like a blade. Luminous. You can speak. I allow it. And remember, he said, his tone laced with a hint of seduction, you're mine now. Disobey me, and you'll regret it. Luminous nodded quickly, the fear in her eyes now mixed with a deep, reluctant UB mission. As the atmosphere settled, Guy Crimson's commanding voice broke through. All right, then. This Walpurgis was held to discuss a single matter, and now it's over. Before I end this banquet, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Frey stood, her composed demeanor drawing everyone's attention. I do, she said, her voice steady yet resolute. Guy raised an eyebrow. What is it, Frey? Frey took a moment before responding, her gaze sweeping across the room. I'd like to step down as a demon lord. The declaration sent ripples through the room. Dagrul leaned forward, his deep voice rumbling. Why? What's your reason, Frey? Frey met his gaze. After witnessing the battles today, I've realized I'm not worthy of this title. I'd rather serve under someone stronger, someone I can trust. Her eyes then turned to Milam. Milam, I would like to become your subordinate. Milam's eyes widened in surprise. What? Are you serious, Frey? Is this some kind of joke? Rimuru, who had been sitting silently, suddenly spoke, his voice sharp and laced with menace. Is that right, Frey? Are you scheming something? Frey quickly shook her head, her voice trembling slightly. No, it's not like that, Rimuru. If I become Milam's subordinate, I can stay with her longer and help manage her nation while still overseeing my own responsibilities. Rimuru's piercing gaze lingered for a moment longer before he leaned back in his seat, seemingly appeased. HMPH. Fine, Rimuru muttered, his tone cold but calm. Frey let out a sigh of relief. Milam, however, wasn't entirely convinced. Do you promise? Milam asked, her voice serious. I promise, Frey responded earnestly. Before the matter could conclude, Carrion suddenly stood as well. I'd like to step down as a demon lord too and serve under Milam, he announced. Guy frowned, clearly irritated by the sudden turn of events. Why, Carrion? Carrion crossed his arms, his expression resolute. If I awaken, I'll be a demon lord again, but that's not my focus right now. After what happened to my nation because of someone, he said, glancing pointedly at Milam, I need to rebuild it from the ground up. Milam scratched her head sheepishly. Hey, don't blame me. Blame Clayman. Oh, wait, he's dead, she said, grinning awkwardly. Carrion shook his head. So, I'll become Milam's subordinate and focus on rebuilding. Rimuru spoke up, his voice calm but authoritative. You can use Clayman's soldiers as laborers, and his wealth should be enough to fund your reconstruction. Carrion blinked, genuinely surprised. Wow, Rimuru. You really think everything through, huh? What can I say? Rimuru replied coolly. After what happened in this world, someone has to be prepared. Carrion nodded. Thank you. I owe you one. Guy sighed, clearly fed up with the proceedings. Fine. From now on, Frey and Carrion are no longer demon lords. Do as you wish. Frey and Carrion bowed their heads before heading to the portal that led to their respective domains. They disappeared without another word. As silence settled, Ciel's voice echoed in Rimuru's mind. Less than finally, she's gone. Greater than. Rimuru frowned. What do you mean by that, Ciel? Ciel paused, realizing her slip, before quickly switching to her practiced tone. Less than it's your imagination, master. Greater than. Rimuru sighed, clearly unconvinced. Sometimes I'm certain you're messing with me, Ciel. Less than thank you, master. I'll take that as a compliment. Greater than. Rimuru groaned softly. It's not a compliment, but. Never mind. As the meeting drew toward its conclusion, Ramirez suddenly broke the calm with a startling observation. Wait a minute. We only have 8 demon lords now, not 10. The room fell silent for a brief moment before descending into chaos. Guy sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. I suppose we'll need a new name for the council now. Dino groaned loudly. Not this again. Do you know how much trouble we went through last time? And we still ended up with people calling us the 10 great demon lords. It's a nightmare. Milam grinned mischievously. I know. Let my bestie Rimuru decide. He's great at naming stuff. Ramirez chimed in, nodding enthusiastically. Yeah, Rimuru came up with Beretta's name, so he's obviously the perfect choice. Guy smirked, his crimson eyes narrowing on Rimuru. Very well then. Rimuru, as proof of your status as an official demon lord, name this council. Rimuru sighed, leaning back in his chair. There's no way I can get out of this, is there? Nope, Guy replied flatly. Rimuru exhaled deeply, closing his eyes in thought. After a moment, he opened them and declared calmly. 8-star demon lords. Octagram. Take it or leave a time not coming up with another one. Guy grinned devilishly. Excellent. Octagram it is. Dagrul nodded approvingly. Impressive. Dino groaned again, slumping in his seat. Why do I feel like we went through hell last time for nothing? Milam puffed up her chest proudly. See, I told you my bestie's the best. Ramirez frowned, crossing her arms. Hey, Rimuru's my best friend too, you know. No way. He's my bestie. Milam shot back. Nope, he's my best friend. Ramirez retorted. Rimuru pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly exasperated. Enough, you two. I'm friends with both of you, so drop it already. Both Milam and Ramirez pouted but reluctantly nodded. Okay. Guy cleared his throat to regain control of the room. Very well. Let's conclude this meeting, shall we? The demon lords nodded in agreement. Guy then turned to Rain, standing behind him. Rain, handle the introductions. Rain stepped forward gracefully and began, her voice commanding attention. Introducing the 8-star demon lords of the Octagram. 1. Guy Crimson Lord of Darkness. 2. Milam Nava the Destroyer. 3. Ramirez Pixie of the Labyrinth. 4. Dino Sleeping Ruler. 5. Luminous Valentine Queen of Nightmare. 6. Dagrul Earthquake. 7. Leon Cromwell Platinum Saber. 8. Rimuru Tempest Lord of Nightmare, Chaos Creator. That concludes the introductions. Rain stepped back to her place as Guy rose to his feet. Following his lead, all the demon lords stood as well. Guy raised his voice, his tone filled with authority. Now, as the leader of this council, I declare the demon lords' banquet Walpurgis officially over. The declaration marked the end of a historic meeting, the birth of the Octagram, and the solidification of Rimuru Tempest's place among the strongest beings in the world. After the Walpurgis meeting concluded, most demon lords left one by one, leaving only a few in the meeting room: Milam, Ramirez, Luminous, Guy, and Rimuru. Milam and Ramirez were bickering, their voices echoing through the room. Rimuru's my bestie. Milam insisted, her fists on her hips. No way. He's my best friend, not yours. Ramirez shot back, crossing her arms. Guy sighed, watching the spectacle with amusement while Rimuru looked indifferent, his cold gaze fixed on Guy. Luminous sat quietly in her seat, awaiting orders, her face betraying a mix of fear and resignation. Guy broke the silence. So, Rimuru, what do you plan to do with the human nations? Rimuru tilted his head slightly, his voice sharp. Which nation are you talking about, Falmouth or Ruberios? Luminous stiffened but managed to keep her composure. Guy clarified. Falmouth. Rimuru exhaled, his tone icy. I'll kill the royal family and replace them with someone capable of ruling under my terms. If they refuse my conditions, I'll obliterate the nation entirely. Guy nodded, seemingly unfazed by Rimuru's ruthlessness. In Ruberios. Rimuru's gaze turned colder. I won't interfere with Ruberios for now. My interest lies solely in Hinata. I want her to understand the consequences of her actions. Though I can't kill her. Luminous looked up, her expression betraying a mix of relief and confusion. Guy raised an eyebrow. Why not? Rimuru's voice softened slightly, though his face remained impassive. Because she was the student of the first person I ever loved. Guy's crimson eyes glimmered with understanding. I see, he said before smirking. And Luminous. Do you plan to keep her like this? Rimuru's expression didn't change, but his words carried a chilling certainty. Of course. Why would I release her? Especially someone with her power and beauty. Guy chuckled. Fair point. Rimuru stood, his movements deliberate and commanding. Well then, I'm leaving. He turned to Luminous, his cold gaze making her stiffen. Order your subordinates to return to Ruberios and deliver my message to Hinata. You will accompany me, Luminous. Luminous hesitated but stood, nodding reluctantly. Before she could take a step, Rimuru's voice stopped her. From now on, you will address me as master. Understand? Luminous hesitated again, her pride warring with fear, but she finally bowed her head. I understand, master. She walked over to her subordinates Roy Valentine and her butler. She relayed Rimuru's orders, and the two bowed before departing. Rimuru turned his attention to the still arguing Milam and Ramirez. His sharp voice cut through their bickering. Enough, you two. Milam, go back to your domain. Milam pouted, stomping her foot. No. I'm coming with you. Rimuru's gaze hardened, his tone leaving no room for argument. No, you're not. Frey is waiting for you, remember. Milam tried to protest. But, Rimuru interrupted, his voice cold but final. No buts. You'll return to your domain and can visit Tempest whenever you want. Now go. Milam grumbled but reluctantly stepped into the portal. Fine. Ramirez looked up at Rimuru, her eyes wide with hope. Can I visit Tempest too? Rimuru's tone softened slightly, a rare moment of warmth. You can come anytime, just like Milam. Ramirez cheered, her wings fluttering with excitement as she jumped into her portal, followed by Trainee and Beretta, who bowed respectfully to Rimuru before leaving. Guy observed the exchanges with mild amusement before speaking again. You act so cold to most people, but for Milam and Ramirez, you're different. Rimuru turned to him, his expression neutral but his voice carrying a faint edge of warmth. Because they're important to me. Guy smirked. Fair enough. Meanwhile, Luminous was speaking with her subordinates, her voice carrying a sharp edge as she addressed them. You two, return to Rubario's and inform Hinata of everything that transpired. Make sure she doesn't do anything foolish. The butler bowed deeply. Understood, my lady. Roy, however, frowned, his fiery temperament getting the better of him. Luminu-sama, why don't you just break that collar? I'm sure you're stronger than that slime. Luminous's eyes narrowed, and she muttered under her breath, her voice tinged with a mix of frustration and resignation. I am not. Roy leaned closer, pressing the issue. Luminu-sama, just try once. There's no way someone like you could. Before he could finish, Luminous snapped at him, her voice a sharp whip of authority. I am not an idiot, Roy. Now do as I. She paused, biting her lip, before correcting herself. Do as my master ordered. The butler, who understood the gravity of the situation better than Roy, nodded and bowed again. Yes, my lady. He stepped into the portal without further comment. Roy, however, remained defiant. This is disrespectful to you, Luminu-sama. If you order it, I can kill that slime. Before he could finish, Rimuru's cold voice cut through the air like a blade. You're an idiotic fool who doesn't understand the situation. Know your place. Roy stiffened, his gaze shifting between Luminous and Rimuru, before reluctantly nodding. He muttered under his breath, his words barely audible. You'll regret this, Rimuru Tempest. With a final glare, he stepped into the portal, disappearing into the swirling light. Luminous let out a weary sigh, her shoulders slumping slightly as she turned toward Rimuru. Her sapphire eyes betrayed her uncertainty as she saw him standing near the portal that led to Tempest. His usual cold, piercing gaze seemed softer for a fleeting moment, though his aura remained commanding. Rimuru's voice, though calm, carried a surprising warmth. Are you ready? Luminous blinked, momentarily shaken by the shift in his tone. She nodded slowly, her voice unsteady. Yes, Ma Master. Rimuru gave her a faint smile, one that was both reassuring and unsettling in its intensity. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. As he leaned in slightly, his words were low and deliberate, sending a chill down Luminous's spine. You'll find that loyalty suits you, Luminous. But remember, as much as I value your beauty and power, I do not tolerate betrayal. Luminous's breath hitched, her heartbeat quickening. His words were both a warning and a strange compliment that left her unsure of how to respond. She nodded again, struggling to maintain her composure. I understand, Master. Rimuru chuckled softly, the sound unsettling yet strangely comforting. He placed a hand under her chin, tilting her head upward so that their eyes met. His touch was gentle, but the power behind it was undeniable. Good. You're learning quickly. Stay that way, and you might find this arrangement enjoyable. Luminous felt her cheeks flush, her mind racing with questions she dared not voice. Who was this man? The cold and calculating demon lord she had seen earlier now radiated an air of seduction and control that left her both fearful and intrigued. Rimuru turned, his demeanor shifting back to its usual indifference. Without another word, he stepped into the portal, the light swallowing him whole. Luminous took a deep breath, steadying herself as she stared into the portal. Her thoughts swirled with confusion. Did I just see a different person like him? Or, is this the same Rimuru Tempest? With one last look at the empty room, she followed him into the portal, unsure of what awaited her in this new chapter of her life.